We're going to get started. Good morning. Thanks for joining us today. Our CEO, Lori Gibbons, is going to kick off our call. Lori?
Good morning, everyone. So I just wanted to get on and introduce Maggie Seidel. She is the EVP of Finseca. I actually had the opportunity to be in Albany this week, Monday and Tuesday, spent the day up at the Hill. As you all know, the DOL Fiduciary regulation is in full force, and Finseca is doing an amazing job to advocate for us in our industry. And actually a little update on the work we were doing in Albany this week, in addition to the work that Finseca is doing on the national level, is the work on Reg 187. So I know everybody is very familiar with Reg 187. We're really working hard on 4 key components that we're trying to have reframed in the regulation to make doing work in New York, at least for term policies, a little bit easier for us. So a big part of getting change is making sure that our voices are heard with our key legislators, senators. So we had the opportunity to meet with over 30 of them. There was a large group of advisors, myself, carrier representatives that got to get in front of over 30 people this week at the Hill. So hoping to have some impact there, but obviously a big purpose of this call is it's not something that can be done alone. We all have to pitch in, with this being the industry that we all love and are passionate about, and want to make sure that we have the ability to continue to protect more customers and clients and business owners and families. And in order to do that, obviously, Finseca is an agency that is really advocating on our behalf. So the more we can do to support them, the better. So this is going to give us a little bit of an opportunity to really get a summarized version of the 600+ page DOL fiduciary regulation that's being submitted at the federal level that really could impact us, our roles in as independent agents, those that are in career agencies. So it is something that across the board, we all should be paying attention to. For those of you who aren't familiar with Finseca, Finseca is actually a combined group. And I know Maggie's going to give you a little bit of a better breakdown of their story, but many of you have heard of AALU, you've heard of Gamma, you may have heard of NALBA. They're all organizations that represent both top producers, advisor community, and brokerage communities within our industry. So they're a conglomeration of those organizations that all now work under one big umbrella on our behalf, provide a lot of great support, education, and advocacy for us in our field. So I'm going to hand it over to Maggie so that she can really give you a breakdown of the fiduciary rule, what it means, what it could mean to us, our business models, the compensation structures, and then even possibly the markets that we serve. So it has quite a broad impact on us. So she'll be able to break that down and give all of us some of those key components so that we can begin to be aware and do what we can to help try to create some change with our legislators. Thanks,
Lori,
Maggie.
Exceptionally well said. And I would be remiss if I didn't give you a huge shout out. Lori is exceptional, and the work that they're doing, as she mentioned, she took time out of her day to go up and provide a voice, not only for her and her team, but obviously for every one of you as well. And in politics, which is where I've spent my whole life, both at the state and federal level, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're on the menu. And so you've got to be telling your story each and every day. There are a lot of, Lori and I were talking before the call, there are a lot of folks in lab coats with Petri dishes in your regulatory offices who think they know how to do your jobs much better than you do. And it's absurd. And so, as Lori said, I'll walk you through just very briefly. I'd like to take you through Finseca's story and why we were created, and the purpose of coming together and reunifying the profession under this broader umbrella of financial security for all. We believe at its core in the Ernst & Young research that you see on your screen. If you are not using this research, you should be, because it objectively shows that the work that you do provides better outcomes for consumers. Not paid for by the industry. This is objective, and we have shared this with our the folks in New York. We've shared this with the folks in Washington, and it's got to continue to get out there. And I would encourage each one of you to share it with your clients, because it verifies objectively that the work that you do, not only is it noble, but it's also very necessary. And the juxtaposition to this, obviously, is this: then why do we continue to see an attack on some of the work that you do? This idea that there needs to be a fiduciary only path, which primarily cuts out the complementary nature of insurance. And we see that in the press. And one of the reasons why Finseca was created was so that we could push back on this. We have an entire section of our value prop that's dedicated to being your voice within the consumer news media. But it doesn't help when we have a circular firing squad. I'm not sure how many of you are CFPs. I'm sure there's a non-zero number of CFPs on the call this morning. And so just before we get into the substance of DOL, you got to know that their board is all for it. So there's no room for the commission-based advice model from their standpoint. And they put out this press release when the White House issued their fact sheet and report about how they were going to push for a fiduciary only model, which, by the way, I just want to say one more time, we have no problem with the fiduciary model. We think that it's a great option for plenty of consumers, and that they should be given access to choice, working with you all so that they can make the best decision for themselves and their families. But it's hard. It's hard, especially when you guys are up against headwinds. And reputationally, this is a Gallup survey that recently came out. And it puts us down near members of Congress and used car salesmen. And it's grossly unfair. So again, why do we have Finseca? Because the profession that's unbelievably noble, that EY shows provides better outcomes to consumers, is being attacked. And it's being attacked regularly. And so a group of folks came together. Finseca is the product of a handful of mergers: NAILBA, AALU, Gamma, Forum, and 60% of our membership, which is now just shy of 10,000, was never affiliated with any of the predecessor organizations. So that tells you that there is a movement afoot. We are the fastest growing trade association that I know of in any space. But we have to continue to scale. And I'll give you NAILU, I'll give you an example sort of toward the end about NAILU and how they beat back attacks like we have seen from the Department of Labor. But we do that through these pillars. So Finseca, for those of you who aren't familiar, has 4 pillars. This is our value prop, if you will. And the work that we do in Advocate, that 3rd pillar there, is a portion of this, and it's giving your voice to sharing your voice with policymakers and regulators on all these issues and so many more. But it's not just that. We created hand in glove. We created the top financial security professionals list with RJ Shook. We have a women's community. We have a handful of events that bring the profession together so that we can demonstrate that together and through unity, we can have greater impact when attacks like what the Department of Labor has done now for the 4th time are finally put to bed. So I'm going to get to the details, and this can get weedy. So if it's too much, just we can offline it, or if we want to go really deep, let's do that. The White House fact sheet is probably the most offensive. It explicitly says that your commissions are junk fees. And then goes on to say that state regulation is inadequate, which is why the Department of Labor has to come in and supersede all the work that the NAIC has done now in 42 states, including California. Quick side note. California took a look at New York 187 and said, oh my gosh, we can beat that. And they came out with a proposal about a year and a half ago that was worse, imagine that for a minute, worse than New York 187. And because of the outcomes that we have seen, because of the consumers that have lost access to advice and products, Finseca and our sister trades were able to convince California that was not the way to go. And instead, they just recently, 2 weeks ago, pushed forward the NAIC best interest model in California. So there's movement, but we were unified. Here's what the Department of Labor is trying to do. They are trying to pass a rule that will make everybody a fiduciary under ERISA. So commissions would not be permissible unless you've got a PTE. Some of you, if not all of you, probably operate within 8424. It's not an option anymore. Everyone's going to have to go through 2020-02, which again is based on securities. So it ignores the complementary nature of insurance and investments. And so the outcome of this is essentially to ban commissions. Now we can go through the nuance. They'll say, no, we're trying to make sure that we protect consumers, and they won't get into any of the counter arguments. Our CEO, Mark Caden, has testified before the Department of Labor on the 12th of December, which, if you guys remember, was right in the middle of the holiday season, and I think it was the start of Hanukkah. We objected, and they said, we don't care. We don't care what this does to consumers. We don't care what this does to the profession. We are going to, candidly, I think they're on an ideological crusade to reach a regulatory outcome. And it's on the fast track. As you can see from this slide, this is their timeline. And that big circle on the bottom is why their timeline is so expedited, more expedited than anything they've ever done in this space. And this is the 4th time they're trying to do it. And the reason why is because they're trying to do it before a presidential election so they can lock it in. Now, there is an opportunity for us to push back, which is why Lori's given me some time this morning. So she was in Albany. We just recently hosted a fly-in in DC because a path forward for us is for Congress and all of your elected officials to say, we're not doing this. There is a no funds opportunity on the table in March. And if enough of us come together, raise our voices and say, what are you doing? This is going to hurt consumers. We don't care if it's the fiduciary path. We don't care if you get compensated a different way. We think consumers should have access to choice. And we are getting momentum, but the chorus has to grow louder. It can't just be the Loris of the world. It can't just be, I'll show you a couple of other ambassadors. We met with 73 legislators last week, including Patrick McHenry, who's the chairman of the House Financial Services Committee. This was an emergency fly-in. So at the last minute, folks came in and we pushed. We pushed on senators, we pushed on members of the House, but I think that's got to continue in order for them to know the story that you guys have to share. Now, we've been on CNBC, and Lori, I'll share the clip afterward. I'm not going to waste your time this morning because it's maddening. These are the most sophisticated financial reporters on the planet. And if you watch the clip that Mark was part of on CNBC's Squawk Box, your eyes would pop out because they have no idea how average Americans get financial advice. And they have no idea how the annuity process works. They have no idea where the distribution of funds, how that occurs. And so Lori's point is we have to continue to amplify your voice. Finseca's doing it, but we got to grow stronger. And I tell you why, because I alluded to this earlier. In 1986, some of you might remember this, there was a proposal. This is the Reagan administration. So somebody who in theory should be an ally. There was a proposal on the table to tax inside buildup, to take the tax advantage of life insurance off the table forever. And 150,000 members from NALU spoke up. 150,000. Now, for context, as Lori said, like Finseca has brought a lot of people together, but we're sitting at about 10,000 members. NAIFA's got about 20,000 members. We got to come together. We got to come together and unite so that not only does the Department of Labor go away, but I know a lot of you know that a huge chunk of the tax code is about to expire. And if they take a big chunk of flesh from us as it relates to DOL, imagine what's going to happen during the tax fight. So this is a steady drumbeat, again, by a bunch of regulators who have no idea what you do. And that's why it's so important, as Lori is in the belly of the beast from my standpoint in going up to New York, because some of those regulations are unbelievable, but there's been movement. And Lori, at some point here in the call, you probably should share that. Like, there is movement and we are making a difference, but it's because she's speaking up and our stories are being told. And when we grow that chorus, we can have influence. The tax on inside buildup has been done for a generation. The same can occur with DOL. So we're doing a special promo for those of you who are not members of Finseca. Go ahead, scan that code. There's a couple things here. One, you get access to all the benefits that I mentioned, but you also lend your voice. You lend your voice so that when the Loris of the world head to Albany or come down to DC, she says, it's not just me speaking. I speak for 15, 20, 25, 50,000 advisors. People that are financial security professionals that are serving millions of Americans.
So Maggie,
Yep,
I know that there are some simple things that everybody can do. I mean, we've been sending around the template letter that can automatically get sent in to the federal legislature. Can you give everybody a little bit of a breakdown of, what things can they do? I mean, obviously, yes, there's great value in the Finseca membership, but there are some simple things that we all can do that are fairly quick and don't cost us any money at all. And can you give them a breakdown of what those things are that do create an impact?
Sure can. I'm going to drop in the chat right now the link for you to contact your members of Congress.
And I think we actually have, Mark has sent around a letter that you just click on and it automatically populates. And I know I was one that I was like, does it really make sense that we just are all sending this same letter with our name on it? But what I actually learned is they don't obviously look at every letter they're getting. They count the number that they're getting. And that number that comes in is how they determine the breadth of the concern. So while it seems strange to just say, let me just shoot out this template letter to my legislator, like this isn't going to do anything, it actually adds to the volume, which is what we need, right, Maggie?
Bingo. So Lori, I spent 5 years working on Capitol Hill. My husband spent 6. You just nailed it. Volume is incredibly important because it shows your elected officials that you care about this, and they need to hear from you. I wish I knew the exact number off the top of my head. So we got 535 elected officials in the House and Senate, and it's something like 1% of them have any experience in selling life insurance.
Yeah, actually, I was shocked. Almost every senator that I met with Monday and Tuesday, they didn't even know what Reg 187 was. So it was an education process.
It's 100% an education process, and we can do this. Let me share a quick story. I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and my 4-year-old has no filter, like most 4-year-olds, little guy. He was helping a neighbor the other day, and he blurts out, neighbor's sort of older in age. He blurts out, "How old are you?" And the neighbor is very kind. He says, "Well, I'm 92. And my son's jaw drops and he says, 92? Did you start at the number 1? Now, I tell you that story. I know you're horrified as a mom, but I tell you that story because it may feel like you're only one voice. It's the aggregation of it, as Lori just said, that really adds up, and it adds up quickly. And so, yes, that link right there in the chat, super easy, sign your name to it, pepper your elected officials. We don't want this. We want the no funds
You
amendment
have
adopted.
some questions in the chat. Maggie,
Sure.
would you mind going back to the screen that outlines what the key components of the DOL fiduciary is trying to do? Because there's a comment in the chat that says, are we saying that the DOL wants to remove financial advisors from the equation because we will not be able to be paid commissions?
That's right. You can provide the advice as long as you do it as a fiduciary.
Yes, so they're wanting everybody to move to a consulting platform, and
That's right. It's going to
not
be
pay
fee
commissions.
only. Yep.
Yes, so the answer to that question is yes.
Yep.
In a comment that they're understanding that they are forcing the change of the definition of the fiduciary under ERISA, ultimately trying to force fee-based planning only option for consumers. Yes,
That's right. And
that
so
is
let's get
correct.
in. So what are the consequences of that? The consequences are a bunch of middle America, probably tens of millions of Americans who don't have enough AUM or not getting access to advice.
Right. And so, you know, when we talk about what products does that include? So our advisor base is selling, you know, life insurance, they're selling annuities, variable or fixed annuities. It would put all of those products into a fee-based only model. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
And you would not get paid commissions anymore.
Correct.
That's what they're trying to do. Yes, that's correct.
So let me go to one more thing. In May, we bring hundreds of your colleagues up to the Hill in conjunction with our advanced markets meeting. So I mean, we bring the finest advisors in the country together. Finseca has 9 of the top 10 Forbes shook top financial security professionals. We've got 70 of the top 100. They all come together at this meeting. Swap secrets, share insights, discuss all kinds of stuff. And then we also head up to the Hill. And so if you've never been to this, it's extraordinary. These are some photos from last year.
So I had never been, but I with all of the advisors I was with this week, I heard it's absolutely amazing and a must attend. So I know Amanda from our office is going to be there. I will probably most likely attend, but I heard really great things about this event this week.
And it's a chance to educate policymakers about the work that you do, the noble work that you do. And again, without that, how do they know? So you guys, I'm sure if I asked for a show of hands, no one would tell me that operating in New York is easy peasy. Without having those conversations, your lawmakers don't know either. And so that's the point here. Again, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're typically on the menu. And why wouldn't they come after you? You got to tell your story.
Sorry, Maggie, I might have missed it. What is the timing on all of this? Like, can you?
Sure.
I saw you had that timeline chart out. Like, when are they looking to make this all in effect? Are we trying to do this all before like October? Can you just go through that timeline again?
Yes, it's an expedited timeline like you've never seen. So the Department of Labor sent the rule to the White House in September, and they are hoping to release the final rule with a 60-day implementation period in April or May. So this could go into effect without a significant pushback from our profession before, Q3 of this year, by design. Because without a transfer in power in the White House, there really isn't a way to pull back the Department of Labor, with one exception, and that is your congressional representatives. There is a proposal on the table to push a no funds amendment, meaning the Department of Labor cannot spend any time, money, or resources on this. And if we pass that, it would happen in March. But that's the purpose of today's call. Get you guys involved, lend your voice to Finseca, join us. So say it goes through. So say we don't get the no funds amendment adopted, and it does continue, we're going to litigation, because the Fifth Circuit already threw this out and said the Department of Labor does not have the authority to do this, and so we're going to continue to do this. The hope is that we can do it before litigation, because litigation is costly. It's going to take a lot of time and effort to try and beat back. But again, the NALU example is the key one. With unity and stronger voices, not only do we put this stuff to bed for a generation, but we can turn to things like a secure 3.0. There's very little that Donald Trump and Joe Biden would agree on, but Donald Trump signed Secure 1 into law and Joe Biden signed Secure 2 into law. This undermines all of that. So it's definitely a regulatory body trying to usurp the power of Congress, and they don't have the authority to do it. So a couple of different options there, Lori. Great question, but we need everybody to get off the sidelines and join us for sure.
Great. Thank you so much. I know we wanted to keep this to 30 minutes. Does anyone else, we have like 3 more minutes. Does anyone have any questions? Like, we definitely want this to be a dialogue. If people have questions, obviously for those of you advisors, this is something that can impact your business. So don't hesitate to reach out to any of us at KAFL. We've been educating ourselves on the regulations so that we understand what it means and can advocate as much as we possibly can. But if you have questions, let us know. We can type them in the chat.
Lori, I really appreciate you. And we'll make sure you guys have my contact information. If you want to ask any questions, go deeper. We have a 26-page comment letter that spells it all out. We can really get into the details. I'll tell you one last thing, Lori. One of the reasons why you didn't hear me say anything about, well, this is how you comply with the new regulation, is because we're not going to stop fighting. And so the pitch is, join us. It can't just be the Loris of the world who lend their voice to it. We need to grow.
We appreciate all the work that everyone's putting in to advocate for the profession, and hoping that, you know, our voices are heard and we'll see some changes to it.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, thank you, Lori. Appreciate you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for your
Everybody.
time today. Thank you, everyone.